This is what Bitcoin breaking $25,000 looks like on the 6-hour today. The headline for the day for crypto, for Bitcoin, is this. CPI measured 6% for the year ended in February, down from January 6.4% and in line with economists' expectations. So it's simmering down, it's coming down. Trueflation on-chain metrics really, once again, coming through, acting as this leading indicator. I want to break down what's going on this chart, this 6-hour chart, why to actually be careful today. And I want to break down targets that we have on this chart, kind of zoomed in targets, but also zoomed out targets. And it all kind of relies on a lot of moving parts, right? So this is definitely something that's good, right? We didn't want this to come in hotter than expected, but there's a lot of other things going on. Now, I continue to maintain this tweet that I put out the other day, March 10th, 4 days ago. I said, my prediction was next week will be a very green week for crypto. And so far, if we look at the weekly candle, look at the weekly candle for Bitcoin. Now, we know what has happened with USDC, with Silvergate, with SVB. We know all of these banks falling and all of the FUD that has been happening recently, and Bitcoin has been resilient through it. Now, off the back of this CPI data coming out, 6%, Bitcoin is primed. But from a technical analysis perspective, and this is why technical analysis works for me so well, we have to be very careful. So before we dig into why on the 6-hour and the daily to be careful, let's start and talk about what's going on the zoomed out, because it is bullish, everybody. So if you're liking this monthly chart right now, on your way in, please hit that like button for me. If you're not a subscriber, hit the subscribe. Look at this monthly candle. I don't even really want to talk about too many other things on the monthly, like the momentum oscillators, which are also bullish. But look at this monthly candle, namely the wick of that monthly candle, wicking down to this lower trend line that extends all the way to the bull market high. If you go real quick as a snapshot and you look at reversal areas on the monthly, here's the COVID swing low. Here's the last bear market low of 2018. And then we go and we look at 2015, the two swing lows there. Look at those monthly wicks. Look at even this wick in August 2016 after this downtrend. That's a monthly candle wick that you really do want to see on Bitcoin, especially as Bitcoin actually is breaking above a 50-month moving average, this area that we've mentioned multiple times Bitcoin has never had to deal with before as a hurdle. So Bitcoin right now, above it, still 17 days left. We got to track this carefully because this month is far from over. But so far, what we see here, that's extremely bullish on the macro charts. We go to the weekly. Here's what's going on in the weekly. We start getting a sense of, all right, things have been looking good, but let's monitor closely and just at the very least be careful for resistance, because putting emotion aside, putting headline events aside, Bitcoin from a technical analysis perspective is at resistance now and approaching even more resistance. So the current resistance at this very moment is the 200-week moving average. Doesn't mean that Bitcoin's going to fail here. What we want to see from a bullish perspective is Bitcoin absolutely just break through on the weekly and close the weekly candle above the 200-week moving average, $25,300 or so. It's right where Bitcoin is as I do this video. So we still have 5 days, 12 hours of the weekly candle. So as we have confluent resistance just above, it's going to be very interesting to see what Bitcoin does in the next 5 days, because we know Bitcoin so far for the week it's had a pretty nice week, right? And we're looking at from that candle low to around 4. So the open of the candle to where we are right now, around 14% for Bitcoin. And you can see it testing this 200 week moving average right now. Now let's start dealing with and getting into the daily chart. So here we are on the daily chart, an absolutely awesome setup for what we call a pivot from bear market to bull market. The setup is just new structure. It's what we need to see amidst volatility, even just the volatility that we had in November, just capitulation and fear down to this, sub $16,000 area. The structure really started in this move, right? This was the beginning of structure. And at the time, none of us knew it. None of us knew what would structure look like. Would it look like, a triangle, right? Some type of triangle. Well, right now, the main structure that I see on the charts and I'm tracking is the rising channel. And we've kind of had just trickling sideways at the lower trend line up to an upper trend line where we had some structure. We tracked target to the downside, bounce off the 200 moving average on the daily, and we're getting this nice boost back to the upper trend line. So the structure right now is playing out very nicely. So this is the exact moment to start being just aware of, I think, what is going on in the charts. At least this is what I'm doing, and there's two reasons why. And then we're going to talk about the target to the upside of this pattern. So the first reason why is very simple. We just looked at it on the weekly chart. It's a 200-week moving average. It's a longer-term zoomed out resistance. We still have 5 days. We need to see how this candle closes. But we mentioned the confluent resistance of that area is the upper trend line, right? So Bitcoin is just right now actually testing this previous swing high, just breaking it. So right now, technically, it's putting in a higher high in this higher high trend line. So naturally, from a technical analysis perspective, there might be some resistance here. What's so interesting to me is right now this is happening amidst pretty good news, I would say, for CPI. It didn't come in worse than expected. And we're going to monitor and see, what does the stock market do? This is Amazon, for instance. This is pre-market as I record right now. But you can see pre-market up, right? So what does S&P 500 do? What does stock market do? Is it going green today in a nice fashion? Here's US dollar currency index falling. This could be the case for an absolutely massive breakout for Bitcoin. So in the very short term, it is caution. As I do the video, I'm watching it right now. I could upload it and it could be broken. But here's the second thing to look for. We get a nice, really nice Bitcoin move to the upside, and it's breaking the trend line. There's a $40,000 target out of this channel. And it's not to say that that's going to happen in a day or two, right? This isn't usually how Bitcoin targets work, to the upside or to the downside. So what we usually see happen, often is the case, is we get a break through a trend line, and then we get a throwback to the trend line. The same is true to the downside. We get a break to the downside, and then we get a pullback to the trend line. So that's something I would be watching for. Interestingly enough, I always like to, not always, but on this chart especially, it's kind of given to take just a simple horizontal line and just kind of cruise back here and look at an area of consolidation for Bitcoin. We can throw a trend line right there, a horizontal line right there, and we say, okay, what does that measure from the trend line break? We say maybe 5 to 10% after a breakout, could there be some type of pullback, right? Well, this would be 14% to the upside after a breakout. If it happens, this could be a region where we could maybe anticipate a pullback for Bitcoin, right? So it's not like Bitcoin's just going to fly up and through. Bitcoin might actually stall somewhere in that range and come back and test this area. This is the area where we would look for some type of bullish support, for some type of bullish continuation. Now, this is something we're going to track. This is very early. I don't usually do videos this early. Even off the back of news like this, I usually just like to see how markets play out. But considering what Bitcoin just did and the odds that it just defied over the weekend with all of that bearish news that was happening with the banks and everything going on, USDC, this is kind of a big move developing right now. And I just want to put some data out there, some things that I'm tracking. Obviously, there's so much more. If we look at the RSI, let's just take note. We're not in overbought yet, but Bitcoin approaching that area. Usually, we might see some consolidation, a pause. It doesn't mean Bitcoin's going bearish immediately for some bearish reversal all the way back down, but a pause, consolidation. And so something, an area that we can anticipate something like that could be kind of somewhere in this area, a consolidation, a pause, a pullback. Be aware of that. I'm aware of it. At the end of the day, if markets go green and stock market's green and Bitcoin's flying, crypto's flying, it's going to just be fun to simply sit back and see how strong the bulls are right now. Remember, $40,000 target to the upside. It's a pretty large channel, pretty large setup, but that's the breakout target. Let's see if Bitcoin can do it. It would be kind of a very similar move if we go to the weekly chart. A similar move compared to what we saw in the last bear market, right? Just coming out of the bear market, just Bitcoin going crazy on that weekly, breaking all these moving averages. It's what we want to see here. And you see these moving averages right now being broken, the 200 week, as we just looked at it, Bitcoin even right now getting separation. These are the things I'll be watching. Bitcoin testing that upper trend line right now. Probably we'll have to do another update video later today, but hit that like button, everybody, if you like what you see so far for the day. And let me know in the comments what you think is going to happen next. I appreciate all of you. Hit the subscribe, hit the like. I'll see you in the next video. God bless.